All right, good vach and welcome to Daf Yomi Megillah number 19. Daf Yud Tet. We'll be doing two dafim tonight, Yud Tet and Chaf. I hope you had a good Shabbos. Let's start from where we left off on Yud Cherem and Beis. About 10 lines up, Gufa. About the third wide line, Gufa. Amar Rabba Barachan Amar Yochanan Asr Lichtov Osa Achas Shalom Min Aksav. He says you can't write in a Sefer Torah, you can't write one letter. Megillah also applies. If it's not coming from a Sefer Torah that's written, you have to copy it from a Sefer Torah that's already written. Macy Veiling, where I asked a question, Amar Roshim Lazar, Maisi Barui Meir, there was an incident with Rabbi Meir. Shahalach La'aber Shana Ba'asya. Asya. He went to Asia. He went to Asia in order to tell them when the New Year was. The New Year was not last night. Was not Friday night. It was actually Rosh Hashanah. He told them in Asia, for the Jews in Asia, that Rosh Hashanah, sometime in September, October, is Rosh Hashanah, not December 31st. I mean January 1st, December 31st night. He went to calculate the years. Megillah, there was no Megillah there. Vakaspa Melibo. He wrote the Megillah by heart, the Kara, and he read it. He read also the Megillah. Apparently, he went during Purim time. He was somebody that the Torah was like always in front of his eyes. So it was like the Torah scroll was in front of him. What is the intention of this pasuk? What does it mean? Amar Allah, elu divrei Torah. It's a reference to words of Torah. You blink your eyes from the Torah and it's gone. You forget it. But Rabbi Meir, he never forgot the Torah. Even if the Torah wasn't in front of him, he was able to remember it. Rav Chisda Ashri Rav Chananel, Chisda found Rav Chananel that Makasus Svarim Shalom Minasav. He was writing Sifrei Torah, Nach, Megillah, without another copying from where there's no Torah scroll that he was copying from. Amar Lei, Ruya Kol Torah Kula Likasiv Al Picha. He said, really, it's fitting the whole Torah is written based on your memory. There's a halacha. It has to be from, you have to copy from something. You can't do it by heart. So the Gemara says, the fact that he said that it's fitting that all the Torah should be written, should be said, it's fitting to be written by you. It sounds like that he had a very good memory also. Rabbi Meir Kosov. So you see, even though he had a good memory, he wasn't allowed to do it. So why was Rabbi Meir allowed to do it? And the Gemara says, Shasat shiny. It was an emergency over there. They went to Asia. No one knew anything about the Allah. Went to the Chabad in China. Chabad in China, they didn't have Megillah. They didn't know what they're doing. So he had to do it from heart by heart. Abaye Shar L'Debei Bar Chabu Michtav Tfilim Mezuzos Shalom Minasav. He allowed this yeshiva of Chabu to write Tfilim Mezuzos. They are so from there. They wrote Tfilim Mezuzos, even though it was from by heart. It wasn't Shalom Minasav. Come on, who is the whole like? Haitana Desanya Rav Yirmi Omer Mishum Rabbeinu Tfilim Mezuzos Nichtavo Shalom Minasav. Svarim, a Sefer Torah, you can't write unless you copy it. But the words of the parshas of Tfilim and Mezuzos you could write from memory. Bein Strichos Yirtut. The Brisa says also they don't need etches. You have to etch under the line where you want to write a pencil or sharp edge to make sure it's straight, the word. But Hilchsa, the halacha is tefillin and strichen sirtut. Tefillin, you don't have to etch underneath the lines. Mezuzah, strichen sirtut. Mezuzahs are more common. They have to have etchings underneath the lines. And halacha, like the Brisa says, they're both written in Shalom Min Aksav by memory, my time. And what's the reason they're different than Sifrei Torah? Migras, Grisen, these things are memorized, they're easy to remember, they're much shorter, so most people are able to remember them, so therefore more makel. Sefer Torah, they were machmer, even if it's someone who has a great memory, but most people forgot it. It would come to a kula, and people who didn't have strict memory would start writing Sefer Torah, Shalom and Aksav. Haisa Ksuva Besam. This just says it was written in these different inks. the following inks. It's not a kosher Megillah. Sam is Sama. Archgold defines it as orbiment. I don't know what that is. Sikra, Amarab Rachana, Sikrasa. It's, again, article says vermilion, some type of red dye. I don't know. Amarab Rachana, Sikrasa Shma. Kumus. What is kumus? Kuma, it's sap from a tree. That I know what it is, right? From sap. I don't know. It looked probably be a clear writing. Kankasum, Karsa the Ushkafi. Kankasum is considered the black ink that they used, the black paint they used shoemakers to make the shoes black. Diphthera is a type of paper that you can't use. The maliach v'kmiach below offits. It was salted, and it was kmiach. It was put in flour and water below offits, but it was not soaked with gallnuts. That's not a good parchment to raya. Nair machka. Nair is papyrus or paper. You can't write a Megillah on paper. It has to be on parchment that comes from an animal. Ashuris. Until it's written in Ashuris, the old Hebrew, the chsiv kichsavam kizmanam. It has to be like the way it was written in the story of Megillah Esther in Shushan by the Jews, kichsavam, the writing of the Jews. What's the writing of the Jews? Ashuris, Al Sefer with Dio Minolan. Has to be written on parchment and with Dio, with black ink. Minolan. Asik ksiva ksiva. It's Xer Shah, ksiva 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 haka, vatikasiv Esther Hamalka. Esther, the queen, wrote, from your mouth you should read me all these words. Therefore, it says ksiv over there, and it says al sefer on parchment with the black ink, special black ink that is used by Sofrim nowadays. The Mishnah, Bein Ir Shahalach Lekrach, someone who lives in a city, an unwalled city, then he went to a walled city. Bein Krach Shahalach Leir, or someone in a walled city went to an unwalled city. And the discussion here is that he's going to be in the other city during the time of Kriyas Megillah. So when does he read? Does he read when his normal city reads? It's the 14th or the 15th. Does he read where he is presently? So it all depends if you're going to, Gemara says, it depends whether you're going to return to your city or you're planning to return to your city before daybreak of that day of Purim. So therefore, if you're a Bain Yudalid and you happen to be in a walled city and you're staying in a walled city, so therefore if you're not going to return, if you're going to stay in the walled city till the morning of the 15th, you're not going to return before daybreak of the 15th, then you would read, you would wait till the 15th and you would read like the 15th and you'd be obligated to read during the day of the 15th. But if you return, and the same thing with someone who's lives in a walled city, but happens to be in an unwalled city, you would read on Yudalid. If you don't plan on returning to the walled city before Yudalid, the day of Yudalid, the daybreak of Yudalid, so then you would read on Yudalid, and you have to read on Yudalid the day also. Where do you have to read? How much of the Megillah do you have to read? You have to read the whole thing. Ish Yehudi, you can miss the first parak. You start from Ish Yehudi when it talks about Mordechai. That's good enough. Yossi Omer Nachar Dver Ha'ila. Yossi says when the third parak of the Megillah, you start talking about Haman, you have to read from there till the end. Amar Rava Lo Shana Al Sha'asid Lachzor Belela Yudalit. When we say Asid Lachzor, is going to return, it's talking about by the night of Yudalit. Ayin Asid Lachzor Belela Arbasar Korei Iman. If he's going to stay till daybreak on the 14th, then he reads, even though he's a walled city, he normally lives in a walled city. Since it's an unwalled city, by daybreak of the 14th, he reads on Yudalid both at night and during the day. Amarava Menana Minala. Where do I get this from? The Pasuk says the Yehudim that live in the walled city, in the unwalled city. Again, it's a repetition who live in the unwalled cities. Mifti. It says It says the Jews that live in the unwalled cities. Why repeat itself and say the exact same thing? What's the chiddush? The paras ben yom nikra paras. The chiddush of repeating it is telling you that even though you're normally live in a walled city, if you're if you live in an unwalled city, even for a day, you're called an unwalled person, and therefore you read on that day. So the Gemara says, when the paras Ashkelon Paras, we found that someone who lives in an unwalled city for one day is called living in an unwalled city. Mukaf minal. And how do you know if you happen to be in a walled city, even though normally you would live in an unwalled city, you'd be called a mukaf for Purim that year? Svarahu, it's a svara. I mean, it's logical. I mean, the paras ben yom kare paras, mukaf ben yom kare mukaf. The halachas to them are similar. So therefore, if you're called living in an unwalled city for one day, that makes you an unwalled city. If you live in a walled city for one day, it makes you called living in a walled city. Amarava being kfar shahalach li'ir. Let's say you're a villager who could read earlier on Yudalad Beis Gimel, and you went to a city on Yudalad, benkach menka korei man. Even though he already read the Megillah on Yudalad Beis Gimel, he has to read another time on Yudalad, my time. Hi kibnei ir boy lemikri. Really, the halacha is supposed to read on Yudalad. Rabbanon the kilo al kfarim k'dishpugul mayim mazon lachem shakrachim. If they went ahead on Monday and Thursday, they went to the big city and they read earlier on Yudalad Beis Gimel. It was a kula for them, in order that that they should be available because they provide mayim mazon lachem shakrachim, like the Gemara said earlier on Daf Hey, is a reward for them. Because they're helping them out, so therefore they made it convenient for them to read it earlier. So, that's only when he's staying in his village. But if he's going to be on Yadalit anyway in the city, he has to follow the normal halacha and read like someone's living in the city. Abaye asked the following question: if you're a ben krach, someone from a walled city that went to an unwalled city, you have to read like your place, like where you normally live. Ben krach sakadaitach. So the first Gemara digests the brisa. Ben krach sakadaitach does it really mean person from a walled city? Ben masu latzur talyamis. That depends when he's going to return. If he's going to return before daybreak or not, like the Mishnah says. El alav ben kfar must be the Mishnah. The brisa is talking about not a ben krach, a ben kfar, a villager. So it must be done on a villager. A villager, even though he goes to an year, he only reads on Yudal Beis Gimel, like the day that normally they read on. You don't have to repeat it, read on Yudal, even if you're in the city. The Gemara says, "V'lab trutzei mitaratz tani korei iman." But the Gemara says, once you're already switching around the brisa, because it really says ben krach, you're switching ben krach to ben kfar. So once you switch ben kfar, so therefore we'll change the brisa again. It'll say korei not with ben komo korei iman. You read again with the big city, and you read on Yudal also. From where do you read the Megillah in your Yossi Yerchova? Tanya Shimon Yochai Omer, he gives a fourth opinion. You only have to start from, I think, the sixth parak, where it says Lailahu Nadash Nas Amelech. Amar Yocham Mikol Mikra Echad Darshu. All four opinions derive their opinion from the same pasuk. But because of Esther Malcolm Mordechai Yehudi is called Tokef, if they wrote for posterity the Megillah, all the power Tokef, all the power of the Megillah. Mandam are Kula. The one who said, Rameir says you have to read the whole Megillah. Tokef shel Achashverosh. Tokef is referring to the strength of Achashverosh. That already starts at the beginning of the Megillah. Mandam Ramish Yehudi Tokef shel Mordechai, the strength of Mordechai, which starts when the Megillah introduces Mordechai. Mandam Rachad Remayla Tokef shel Haman refers to the strength of Haman. Mandam Remayla who Shimon, this fourth opinion of Rishon Ben Yochai, Tokef shel Nes. The main part, the strength of the Nes happened when Achashverosh sleep was disrupted, and he read about what Mordechai did for him. Rav Huna Amar Mahacha. Rav Huna says these four opinions base their opinion on a different pasuk. Manda Amar Kula. The one that says the whole Megillah after Mara Achashverosh. What Achashverosh shish nishtamish bekelim that caused him to use the kelim shel Beis Hamikdash, the utensils of Beis Hamikdash al kacha. It was because of this. Mishum the chashiv shivim shneim lo ifrak. He calculated like we learned earlier on Daf Yomi. He calculated 70 years, and Klal Yisrael wasn't redeemed. What ended up happening? The Katal Vashti, he killed Vashti because of that. Mordechai. What did Mordechai see? The Ikni Bahaman, that he started up with Haman. Al Kacha, the Shabi Nafshe Azar, because he saw that Haman made himself like a Azar. What happened to him? This Rakish Nisa, a miracle happened. The third opinion says, from Haman, Haman is kind of Bechol Yehud. And what did Haman see? That he started provoking all the Jews. Al Kacha, Mishun the Mordechai lo Yerchav Lishtachva. He says in the pasuk later on that Mordechai wouldn't bow down to him. And what happened to him? He and his sons were hung on the tree. The fourth opinion, what caused Achashverosh to bring the book of remembrances? Al Kacha, because Esther invited Haman to the party with her. And what happened? This Rakish Nisa, a miracle happened. Halacha Omer Kula. The halacha is you have to read the whole Megillah. Even the second opinion says that start from Ish Yehudi, Shricha Ksuva Kula has to be the whole Megillah has to be read, has to be written. You have to read from a Megillah that contains the entire Megillah. You just don't have to read the whole thing. Megillah Nikra is Sefer and Nikra is Igeris. Megillah is referred to sometimes as Sefer, like a Sefer Torah, and it's also referred to as a letter, like an Igeris. Nikra is Sefer, it's called a Sefer, Shem Tafar B'chute Pishtam Sula. Just like a Sefer Torah, you can't sew the pages together with linen, you have to sew it together with the sinews of an animal. Nikra Zigeris is called a letter. Why? Shem Hitaba Shloshachute Gidin Kshera. Even though Sefer Torah has to be, has to be combined, the pages have to be sewn together the entire length down, barring a little bit on the top and the bottom. By a letter, as long as it has 3 stitches, even though there's space between the stitches and doesn't go the entire way down of the page, it's kasha. That's only good by the Megillah if the 3 stitches are of equal length. If you read a Megillah from let's say a long parchment and includes all of Tanakh or all of Ksuvim, and you want to read Megillah from that, that's not good. It has to be just the Megillah, because that's by itself. Of course, so that's we're only talking about where the pages of the whole Sefer that includes all of Ksuvim are the same length. But if the Megillah portion is either the pages are a little shorter or they're a little longer, so it's different, and you see that it's different than the rest of the parchment. Leisan ba, it's not a problem. Levi bar Shmuel, Hava Kakari Kamed Rav Yehuda. Levi bar Shmuel was reading the Megillah in front of Yehuda, Megillah Ksuva Bein Ksuva, like this instance where it was all of Ksuvim was written together, all Tanakh was written together. He said to him, Allah, like we just learned, you're not Yotze. He hit him on the head, meaning he made a stipulation about this rule. But Tzibur Shah, it's only talking about when you're trying to be Moti at Tzibur of all. But if you're doing B'yachid, that's okay. He said the leaving, you're supposed to leave, even though you're supposed to sew with sinews the entire way down the 2 pages of Sefer Torah. You're supposed to leave a tafar, you're supposed to leave on top and the bottom a little bit of space where you don't sew. He says that's halach al Moshe Sinai. That's the reason you have to leave a little bit not sewn. They hit him on the head. They said it's not exactly true. The whole reason that you leave a little bit is that it should have a little bend, so it shouldn't rip. That's the reason. It's not halach al Moshe Sinai. It's just a practical concern. Again, another quotation from this rabbi. Even Moshe and Eliyahu had HaKadosh Baruch Hu pass in front of them. They went into a Mara, and Hashem came, and Hashem passed in front of them. So if there was even a hole the size of a small needle in the cave where they could see out of, they would cease to exist because of the light, the radiation of Hashem. Shnemar Kilo Yereni Adam V'chai. A person can't say Hashem and live. Amar Rav Chiba Abram Yochanan Ma'idich Siv Aleim Kachal Dvarim Asher Diber Hashem Imachem Bahar. Balamed, all these things that Hashem said to Moshe. Balamed Sharei LaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe Dikdukei Torah. He showed him all the Dikdukim, all the Chidushim that you can come from the Torah with the Dikdukei Sofrim, and what the rabbis or Mechadesh and Torah Masha Sofrim Asidin L'Chadesh, and what the later rabbis were future destined to interpret and to Mechadesh. My idea Mikra Megillah, what was later instituted, was Mikra Megillah was referring to. The Mishnah says, "Akol ksher and likros Megillah." Everyone is kosher to read the Megillah. Chutz mecher shota v'katan, a cherish, a deaf person, or shota, someone who has psychiatric problems. A katan who is not the age of bar mitzvah. Yehuda machshav a katan. Yehuda holds a katan would be kosher for the Megillah. Ma'antana cherish di'avinamilo. Who is the author of Mishnah that holds, seemingly the Gemara assumes that cherish you're not yotzi even the Ebed. Amar Rav Masna Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi. The Stana Koras Shema V'lo Yishmiel Azno Yotza. Tanakama will see as Rabbi Yehuda says you read Shema and you don't hear what you said. Yotze b'diavad. Yossi Omer lo Yotze. Yossi says you're not Yotze. So just like if you can't hear, Chayrish for sure can't hear what he's reading. So So he's not Yotze even with the Evid. Umayd Rabbi Yossi. How do you know that our Mishnah Rabbi Yossi? The Evid Nami Lo. In the Mishnah means you're not even Yossi with the Evid. Dilma Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe our Mishnah like the first opinion by Kriya Shema. L'chadchila hu delo. Really, the Mishnah says Cheri Shot of a Katan. L'chadchila you're not allowed to. Had the Evid Shabbat, but the Evid, if they read, it would be a good reading. It says Lo Sagdai Daksani Cherish Dumi the Shot of a Katan. It says the groups of three together. Cherish and Shot of a Katan. Ma Shot of a Katan. The Evid Nami Lo. Just like someone with psychiatric problems and a Katan. Person below bar mitzvah, he's not yotzim diavad. And I'm a choiv mitzvahs. Af cherish diavad namilos. So we must listen to the cherish also. You can't hear. You're not yotzim diavad. V'dilma hakdis v'hakdis. And the Gemara says maybe that's not true. Maybe even though it groups them together, really the laws that applied to it. A cherish b'diavad and shad of katan is not even diavad. You're yotzim. When anyone tries, you want to say that the Reish is Rabbi Yehuda and he holds b'diavad Yotze, but the Seifa is Rabbi Yehuda. It says Rabbi Yehuda, so we see the Reish is not Rabbi Yehuda. Right? So Vidima Kula Rabbi Yehuda. So the Reish says maybe really it is Rabbi Yehuda. Just mentioned his name at the end, but really the whole thing is Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says, "Mi dami Reish l'psula v'Seifa l'kshera." The Reisha is a katan is possible. Seifa says a katan is kshera. It can't all be Rabbi Yehuda. Vidima Kula Rabbi Yehuda here. Where it persists, maybe it really is all Rabbi Yehuda. But Trey Gavne katan gasani. There's two types of a minor, a katan. The chasuri mechsar, it's missing words in the Mishnah. Haki gasani. This is what it means to say a kol kshera like this is Megillah. Everyone is kosher in Megillah chus mecher shad of katan, except mecher shad of katan. Medram mur mechatan shlo agil lechinuch. That's only talking about a katan that didn't reach the age of chinuch, at the age of 5 or 6 or 7, was able to learn mitzvahs. The Seifa is lechatchila, your Yotze, according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the ratio would also be Rabbi Yehuda, and a cheresh would be Yevid, you would be Yotze. So the word is Mayukim, like Rabbi Yehuda, you want to say our Mishnah fine. It's like Rabbi Yehuda with Yevid, and a cheresh or Yotze with Yevid. El Hadetani, Rabbi Yehuda, Braid, Roshim, and Pazi, cheresh, Madab, and Shameya. He speaks, but he can't hear. Torm l'chadchila. You're allowed to even take off chumos and ma'ishos l'chadchila. Mani, right? When you take off chumos and ma'ishos l'chadchila, you're supposed to have bracha. You have to be able to hear the bracha. Rabbi Yehuda diavad l'chadchila lo. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, he holds b'diavad on b'diavad. Rabbi Yossi diavad nami lo. Rabbi Yossi holds b'diavad not yotze. It sounds like in this price even l'chadchila it could be Torah. Ve'elamai. What do you want to say? Rabbi Yehuda b'afil l'chadchila. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds a cherish could be Torah milchachila. El had tani levarach adam berachas mazon belibo v'im birach yatsa. So now we're assuming Rabbi Yehuda really is machshir milchachila by a cheresh. Lo yivarach adam berachas mazon belibo v'im birach yatsa. L'chachila you're not supposed to make berachas mazon without hearing the words. You're saying the words, you're not hearing the words. B'diavad Rabbi Yossi mani. Who is that? Lo Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda fil l'chachila. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can even do l'chachila. Rabbi Yossi fil b'diavad nami lo. According to Rabbi Yossi, you're not even Yossi b'diavad. So let's continue a little bit. L'olam Rabbi Yehuda. Really, it's Rabbi Yehuda. V'afil l'chadchila. V'lo kasha. Rabbi Yehuda holds. There's two Rabbi Yehudas. There's Rabbi Yehuda himself. V'lo kasha. Had the Rabbi. One is his own opinion. His own opinion. You can even do it l'chadchila. Had the Rabbi. His quoting his Rebbe that b'diavad you wouldn't be. It's only yotzi b'diavad. The time Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Le'ezim and Azariah Korah Shema L'Tzara She'er Shema La'ozno. If you're in Kriya Shema, you have to hear what you're saying. L'chadchila, Shneimar Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hashmei al Azacha, the words of Shema here. Hashmei al Azacha Ma Shadam Motzim Picha. You have to listen. Your ears hear what you say. Rameir Omer, continue the Bryce. Rameir Omer Asher Anochim B'Zayavcha Hayom Al Levavecha. What I command you today on your heart. Acher Kavanas Halev Heinin Advarim. Rameir holds a new shita. He says you go after the lave, meaning the heart, not the intention. As long as you said the words, even though you can't hear them, you're even Yosef l'chadchila. So the Gemara says, once we found this, Hashdas Slach, once we now see this opinion of Rameir, I feel Temo Rabbi Yehuda Karabis really. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold differently than his Rebbe. He holds like his Rebbe. That a cheresh is Yotze b'diavad. Hadatani Yehuda Braid Rabbi Shimon and Pazi, that which says a Torah, someone take a Shumas and Maestros can even do l'chadchila even though you can't hear. Rabbi Meir, that is Rabbi Meir, who holds you don't have to be, you can say the words without hearing them. All right, we'll end today at Daf Yud Tet 19, and we'll see you in 10 seconds for Daf Chav.